Welcome again, family, to Lav-Living Wellness channel. You are with Dietitian V. We are still doing the diabetes series. So, because everybody knows diabetes and everybody talks about diabetes everywhere, we've done an awareness for all of us to know that we all need to look after our glycemic status, that's sugar status, to know how we are. We talked about diabetes in the special community of pregnant mommies. Check out our previous videos on diabetes for that. Today, I don't think we can, diabetes is broad, Bazalwan. I cannot cover everything on diabetes, and as we continue on this journey, here and there, I'll get to bring certain aspects so that we get to know a lot of things that we can do nutritionally and lifestyle-wise to improve our health. So, but I think we will close our series with talking about another special group of people. I decided not to be doing the general adults, men and women with diabetes and all that. We'll do it at another time. So today I just want to talk about diabetes in children. Young children, infants, toddlers, children, school-going children, teenagers. So we'll keep it in that community because I noticed that these communities often are left behind, and even for the parents that are living with children that are living with this condition, it's still a problem because they go everywhere. It's like there are no awarenesses, no resources, no consideration that there are young children that have diabetes. So I think today we will actually take a look at that. And being a dietitian, I must tell you that in the years I've worked with children that are diabetic, I've noticed that children are more bold than their parents. When you have a diabetic child as a patient, it is the mummies and the dad that are more sick than the child herself. The child, if you explain to the child what they need to do and how they can go about it, how to package their food and things like that, how to take their insulin and things like that, children are much more bold in terms of taking control and power and charge of their health. So much as the video is not necessarily shot for children as an audience, you can actually sit through with your child as a parent, supervise and explain things that you may need to break them down in your own language for your child. So, and I know that you could be watching and be thinking, but I don't have a child with diabetes. Still pay attention because, like as we are saying, we live as a community. You could be having an uncle whose child is diabetic. You could be having a friend, a colleague whose child is living with diabetes. Or life is dynamic. So like that, still pay attention and do share with others. So let's talk about children that are diabetic. So quite often when children are diabetic, remember something that I didn't explain before is that people have diabetes for very different reasons. Some people have diabetes because one, they are having insulin deficiency. So I just want to put it in two groups so that we don't get confused each other. Some people develop diabetes because they have a deficiency of insulin. That means they cannot produce insulin. Remember, insulin is that hormone in the body that actually overlooks at a lot of many metabolic chemical reactions that take place in the body. When you eat your food, for you to eventually have that plate of food metabolized into proteins, into vitamins and sugars and all that, you need that insulin hormone and alongside with other hormones. But insulin hormone is like that chief hormone. So one of the things that you will actually get to experience is that some patients have diabetes, one, because they have a deficiency of insulin, they do not produce it. Or even if there is it's very little, it's almost as good as it is not present in the body. Some people, and I'm simplifying, some people will have diabetes because they have insulin resistance. This is the group of people that usually have insulin, and they tend to produce it in higher amounts. But because of that resistance that we spoke about, that a person at cellular level or muscles and may be having a lot of fat around that area, such that they experience insulin resistance. Then you can have people that have a combination of both. You can have people that don't have insulin and they have insulin deficiency on top of insulin resistance. So you look at this person that, all right, this person does not produce their insulin, or they produce very, very, very little. And then on top of that, they still have a high resistance of insulin. And that also tends to complicate the care of diabetes. You also have those other people that don't necessarily, you have got those ones, like as I say, you have insulin deficiency on insulin resistance, and others have insulin abundance on insulin resistance. We have these kind of combinations, and these are some of differing reasons why people can have diabetes. However, when young children at the main have diabetes, including teenagers and people in the early 20s, generally they would have diabetes because they have deficiencies of insulin. However, hi babe, how are you, my love? I'm good. Okay. One this day, forget. However, we have other people that when they have diabetes and they're young and they're children, it's not because they are insulin deficient. Quite often, I do find that because now we've got a lot of children that are obese, which is something we'll talk about another time, childhood obesity. Because of childhood obesity, we do have now groups of children that are diabetic, but not because of the typical reasons of being insulin deficient, but those ones you find that they are diabetic because of insulin resistance, which is a phenomenon that was not previously common in young children. So our focus again, even when we talk about diabetes in young children, just that understanding that predominantly it will be because pathologically it will be by the reason of insulin deficiency. Nowadays, when young people, even like as I said, you find teenagers and young people in their 20s and whatever not, it is possible for people that are not young children to have diabetes because of the deficiency of insulin that starts when they are older. Often then you will find that doctors will say that person has got a late onset of type 1 diabetes. So those people tend to present somewhere like children that are diabetic because of the lack of insulin. So typically, medically speaking, you'll say these children have got type 1 diabetes, and that's more or less when you say people have got type 1 diabetes, it's because of the deficiency of insulin. I hope in all these presentations and explanations, we now understand each other as to where we are at. So with young children, sometimes you find young babies, toddlers, like as I said, primary school children, the biggest challenge that I've seen is food. Try and explain to a child who's supposed to be on a breast or who's breastfeeding or on a formula that they have got insulin deficiencies and the medications that are available. In some countries, it's a struggle in some countries to even have resources of medication to treat these children. So quite often, when you see these children with insulin deficiencies, they tend to have struggles to grow because insulin is also a growth hormone. So you will find that these children tend to present with some form of malnutrition because of the deficiency of insulin. We need insulin to grow, for you to have your height, your bone are growing, your bone length is growing, your muscles are firming and things like that. You are experiencing all that because you have insulin and it is working. The day insulin will just disappear from your body, you'll find yourself losing in quite a lot of weight. So even these children tend to experience difficulties with weight, and that's why you find even teenagers that have got that type of diabetes diabetes, you find that they keep remaining very small, very tiny, very thin, because of this insulin hormone that is deficient in the body, or that is not being produced in the body. Something else also is that besides the weight challenges is the constant needing for food, needing for eat. So you will also notice that these particular children, and again, because even if you feed them, because insulin is not storing these nutrients, it's not there to store the nutrients, this child is like constantly hungry in a way that cannot be explained. You know, you feed the child is not, it doesn't look like this child is going anywhere. You feed them, they don't gain the weight, they are hungry more. So it's like this child is hungry more, thirsty more, no weight gain, no growth, getting weaker and much weaker, and things like that. So these type of diabetics, children and young, say newborns, let's say the under 2, the 2-year-olds, the smaller ones in primary school ages, teenagers and whatever, because their body, in that absence of insulin, when you keep feeding and they are not metabolizing that sugar, they're not storing the nutrients, they lose the weight, they shrink, they get dry, they get dehydrated, they get so weak, they're very much vulnerable to eventually developing what is called ketoacidotic coma or ketoacidosis. And I know those of you that have been like, no, I want to be on a keto diet to lose weight. Now you get confused. We'll talk about it also some other time. So these children are very much vulnerable to building up a lot of acidity in the body to the point where it can collapse the body. So, and you can already tell that you're talking like a constant care. You also notice that even with food that they eat, I mean, it's very easy for these children to shoot their sugar levels very high, because when you eat, there's no insulin, so the sugar goes very high. Insulin controls the sugar by distributing it. You eat your food gives you sugar, and the insulin distributes that sugar. So in the absence of that insulin, you eat your food, there's sugar everywhere in the blood, it's not being distributed. And that being said, the sugar and the nutrients are also not entering the cells. They're not being absorbed, they're not being taken in. So you have a crazy situation now. You will notice also that even for the few days, I do experience it, that especially if you've worked in public hospitals or you worked in communities or areas in the country where, you know, sometimes you go to the clinic and then they tell you the medication is finished, or they tell you there's no medication. Somebody did not order, or somebody did not do their job, it did not come. So then you find that this child is going to spend a few days without insulin. And as a parent, you already know what that means. Your child's sugar level is going to be too high, and then the ketoacidosis that is going to form, the DKA that actually follows. It's kind of crazy. So essentially, when a patient or when a person is diabetic because they have a deficiency of insulin, that person's life depends on having insulin. So even as a parent, I want to encourage you, don't be saying, no, Prophet Mama has said, then you stop giving your child medication. Please find your child medications. Do use those medications for a diabetic child that is living with diabetes. I've seen it far too many times where a child comes and the parents are saying this and the child is saying that. The parents are afraid to give their child the medication again, because in the deficiency of insulin as a hormone, when a person does not have it, you can't now replace it with anything else. You have to give that child that insulin. So that it's important to be on that medication. So on the food basis, children, because often, you know, children are children. Sometimes you'd be like, okay, now we've seen a dietitian, this is the diet, and child, we are going to eat like this. And you come back, your child has not eaten a thing. Your child comes back with their lunchbox and you ask, hey, Bushle, what did Bushle eat? Bushle ate with other children. Bushle has been eating other kids' food, and Bushle still comes home with high sugar levels. Or Buhle did not, Buhle took their medication, Buhle skipped a meal, maybe children were having a lunch, teacher does not understand what is happening, Buhle did not eat her food, and then the next thing you know, you are called from school because Buhle's sugar levels are low. So these are some of the challenges mothers or fathers and parents that are living with children with diabetes go through. With teenagers, same thing also tends to happen. You find that your teen has gone out on a date or playing with others and forgot to eat their lunchbox, or decided not to eat their diet lunchbox, to share a meal with others and those kind of things. And then the next thing you know, trouble. Other things that we also see is that teenagers wanting to experiment with life. I've had one child, unfortunately, that went on an alcohol spree with friends. It was wrong for them as teenagers to even touch alcohol. But nonetheless, this child, and together with others, they took their cooler box and they went on drinking sprees. Parents, please, children should not drink alcohol. Whichever way you look at it, no child should be drinking alcohol, please, bazali. So, needless to say, this child, they went to fountains and had a drinking spree, came back, and later this one went into a DKA, and the end was not what we desire, what any parent was desiring for, unfortunately. So there are these challenges. So in terms of the food, again, when you do your groceries, as we're closing our conversations, do speak with your child. One, do explain to your child, if they're at an age where they can comprehend, do explain to them what kind of a condition they have. And if you don't necessarily know how to put it in simpler words for your child, rope in the assistance of a health worker that can counsel both you and your child in terms of understanding what kind of condition they're living with. Now, in terms of the food also, you would want to have that good counsel for understanding that why is it that you cannot eat certain things as a child when other children are eating them. So it's like bringing a child to a level of understanding that I don't eat this and I eat that, and with explanation. Don't just be yelling at a child and spanking a child, don't eat bread, don't eat that, don't eat a sweet, and things like that. So you do want to have a thorough explanation with a child to understand when they can have it and why not have that, and that kind of a thing. So your groceries as well, take into consideration that you have a child in the home who is living with condition X, with diabetes. Please pay attention to this child together with other children that you might be having in a home. So don't find that maybe at a home these other children are eating chocolate and this particular one is not eating it because now you have diabetes and things like that. So try to create a situation as a parent where there's like an understanding and a supportive environment for every person at home to understand why we're eating certain food and why we're not eating certain food. Like I promised you, we will get to do the cooking of this food so that we get to see how practical it is to make it. I love you so much, and thank you for spending time with me. Click that like button and that subscribe button and share. Until next time, I love you. God bless you.